Hi everybody. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to cite things in your paper. So you've already done verbal citations in Module 2. We'll review that, and then I'm just going to show you a little bit about parenthetical citations today. So verbal citations mean that you name the author and the title of the work in the lead into the quotation or paraphrase. The first time you cite any source, I want you to use a verbal citation. An in-text or parenthetical citation means that you provide some brief information in the parentheses after your citation. Generally, it's going to be the last name of the author, and if it's a print source, you're going to use a page number. If it's a web source, you're just going to stick with the last name. If you don't have a last name because there's no author, you're going to use a snippet of the title. Very simple. This kind of citation neatly directs the reader to the source on the works cited page. Remember, those two things go together, the source citation and the works cited page. So let's look at some examples of verbal citations. The first one says, according to Eric Schlosser in his book, Fast Food Nation, comma, and then I move right into the quote. Congress should ban advertising that preys upon children, blah, 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 blah. If I was using a book that was a print book, I would probably slip a page number in there in parentheses at the end. Once you've done a formal lead-in, you can later just refer to the author by his or her last name if you want to. Schlosser continues, comma, a generation ago, 3/4 of the money used to buy food in the United States was spent to prepare meals at home, blah, 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 blah. So again, if you have a page number, you could slip that in there either verbally or within the parentheses. Now here is a look at how to do parenthetical citations. So as I had mentioned a minute ago, when we do parenthetical citations, it really depends on the kind of source that you have as to how you're going to cite it. So if you have a print source with an author, it's going to look like this. Look at the first one there. Lead in, comma, either the quotation or the paraphrase. The paraphrase would not be in quotation marks. Space, there's no period. Author's last name, space, page number, close the parentheses, period on the outside. If for some reason you have a print piece with no author, which can happen sometimes if maybe you're using, an article that was printed in, I don't know, your neighborhood paper and there's just no author on it because it was written by a team of people. Lead in, comma, quotation or paraphrase. You put the article title in quotation marks within the parentheses, space, page number, period on the outside. Let's look at the third one. If you have a web source that includes an author, if you're using sources from the internet, I prefer that your sources have authors because people need to take ownership of things. I'm always a little wary when people don't want to put their name on something on the internet. You have some sort of general lead-in, comma, quotation or paraphrase, and then in the parentheses, you just put the author's last name. You notice there's no page number because it's on the internet, and page numbers on the internet are inconsistent. Period on the outside. Finally, if you've got that weird source, which is a web source with no author, you have a little lead-in, quotation or paraphrase. Within the parentheses, you put the article title or a snippet of the article title. If the article is too long, close the parentheses, period on the outside. Now, when you're using titles of sources, make sure that you are capitalizing those correctly. So in this piece, on this page, you'll see me just completely break down step by step how to do an in-text parenthetical citation. So after the quotation or the paraphrase, type an open parenthesis. You have no other punctuation unless you're quoting a question mark. But if you're quoting a statement and the author uses a period, you're actually going to leave that period off because your sentence isn't done until you've cited it. So type an open parenthesis. Number 2, type either the author's last name and then hit the space bar and include the page number. Do not use a comma. Step 3, type the closing parenthesis and then add a period. So if I had written something and you had quoted me, at the end of that quotation, you would see parenthesis, more, space, page number, close parenthesis, period. So just note that the period comes at the end of the parenthetical citation. There should be no other period at the end of the sentence. If the sentence ends in a question mark, however, leave the question mark. If you don't have an author, use a snippet of the article title, but be wary of sources that don't name authors. Why didn't they put their name on it? So if I was quoting from an article about plagiarism, I could, maybe I don't have an author for that because it's written by Purdue University's OWL. I'm just going to use the title of the article, and again, you see that the period is on the outside. Here's some examples of sources cited with in-text citations. I want you to note that there is a lead-in. It's not a verbal citation lead-in, but there's still a lead-in. They're still introducing the quote. You're going to see that in blue, and you're going to see the citation, the parenthetical citation, in red. So I'm going to read you these sentences. Simple advice for how to eat can be summed up as eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Notice I don't have a period at the end there until parentheses, pollen, space, 15, close parentheses, period. Looking down at below the note, it is logical to avoid eating meat, there's an overabundance of rational reasons to say no to factory farm meat. It is the #1 cause of global warming. It systematically forces tens of billions of animals to suffer in ways that would be illegal if they were dogs. It is a decisive factor in the development of swine and avian flus, and so on. I skip the period. I cite the author. We read Let Them Eat Dog online, so I didn't have a page number. So I'm just going to list his last name and then close with a period. This is becoming a problem so I'll talk about this kind of lead-in a moment. This is becoming a problem as, quote, 64.5% of all Americans are either overweight or obese, quote, end quote, parentheses, and now I don't have an author on this web source, so I'm citing the title of the piece, and the title of the piece is called Sad Consequences, and I'm putting that in quotation marks. I've capitalized sad, I've capitalized consequences, close parentheses, period on the outside. What I want to point out in this third example here is that I took a quotation and I blended it seamlessly into my own quotation. I just let it in there. There's no, like the one above it is really formal. It is logical to avoid eating meat, That's a really kind of formal, here comes a quote. On the bottom one, this is kind of a more advanced skill of weaving quotations into your own sentences, which you could absolutely do. It's a great thing to do. It helps your sentence fluency, but always remember to cite your source. Here's what not to do. Do not provide the year of publication in the place of a page number. That is not MLA style. Do not paste a web address into the parentheses. That drives me nuts. There is no citation style wherein you paste a web address or a URL into the parentheses. If you do that, that tells me that you are not paying attention in class. Number 3, do not include a comma in the citation. We do not use a comma before the page number. Number 4, do not provide the whole source entry from the works cited page. Sometimes people create the works cited page and then they think that's how you cite things internally, and they copy that whole clunky, chunky citation of a book or a web page into the paper. Nobody wants that. We just want a little keyword to trigger for us the idea that, oh, I'm really interested in this Jonathan Safran Foer piece. Let me go find the full documentation information on the works cited page and find it for myself. That's how we use it. Don't paste the whole thing in. Do not decide to skip citing evidence that you use. That's called plagiarism. Oops. So if you have facts in your paper and you're not citing them, that's plagiarism. I will give you a 0 on your paper and ask you to revise it. If you're at a university, you may have an instructor who's really nice at ASU who says, oh, that's plagiarism, please redo it. Or you may have an instructor who says, oh, that's plagiarism, go ahead and leave the university because that's against the code of conduct. So this is actually quite serious. Plagiarism is a really big deal. Please don't do it. This is a safe place for you to practice citing sources and not plagiarizing. In English 102, this is going to be the heart of what you do. Okay, looks like that is the end of my presentation on in-text citations. So I am going to email this out to you guys today, and we will do a little practice with it in class on Friday. So I hope you all have a really great day, and I will see you later.